Hey, bore da pawb. Good morning and welcome to this multi-location meeting of the Environment, Regeneration and Street Scene Scrutiny Committee on the 6th of October 2023. I'm Councillor Sean Percy and I'll be chairing the meeting this morning. Can I just remind members to ensure that your phones are switched to silent during the meeting today. In addition, if you wish to speak, please raise your hand in the chamber, and if you're on Teams, raise your electronic hand. Before I cover off what items we're scrutinising today, we've had an indication in pre-briefing for the KPIs item 9 on the cabinet papers, and we'll be covering item 3 on the scrutiny agenda as well. Since then, we've had 3 urgent private items, and we've had an indication to scrutinise item 10B. Do members wish to ask any questions on any of the other private urgent items? If you can just let me know so we can go to those items when we enter private session later. Councillor Patterson.
Apologies, Chair. I'm using my iPad and I haven't got my the notes up. 10B, which is that one?
So 10B is in relation to the Wilko store.
Right. I would like to say something on the one about the kiosk. It's a comment, not so much a question.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah, if we're going into, we do a bit of an echo.
I need my mic on to say something though. That's the only thing.
Yeah, I'm not sure if it's you, Councillor Patterson, but just we can. I bet it's stopped now. Fantastic. Okay, thank you. So yeah, we'll be scrutinising an item 9 on the cabinet. Could you mute your microphone, Suzanne, please? There we are. Thank you. Right, so we'll be scrutinising item 9 on the cabinet papers, along with item 10B and item 11, and item 3 on the scrutiny agenda. Okay, so I'll now move on to declarations of interest. Are there any declarations of interest? Okay, I can't see any. Sorry, Tom. As usual, members, if you need to make a declaration during the item, just raise your hand and let us know. We can deal with that then. So I'll now move on to agenda item 3 on the scrutiny papers, which is the scrutiny annual report. I'm not going to read through the whole thing. I'll just give sort of a brief summary, really, of the highlights. So this report basically covers outlines the work of the scrutiny committee over the period June 2022 to May 2023. It's quite a useful summary for us really and the public to kind of reflect on what we've managed to achieve over that last year. Obviously, we've got a couple of new members to the committee as well, so I'm sure it's helpful for them. But I think it's fair to say that the committee's been working quite hard over the last year. We've managed to complete 2 task and finish groups, as well as having quite a few intense, lengthy scrutiny sessions on a number of items. And as the report outlines, we've managed to secure quite a few successful amendments and changes to policy and documents as well. So I think overall it's been quite a productive year for the scrutiny committee, and I just want to thank all the scrutiny members for their contributions and their work over the last year. And I'm sure this civic year will be just as productive and just as busy. I believe I've got an indication from Councillor Cathy James before we just move to the recommendation. Did you wish to say something, Cathy?
Yeah, it was just to comment on how good the report is. I think it gives a really excellent outline of what we've done and what we've achieved over the last year. So I just wanted to thank you and whoever else worked on it for your hard work on the report.
Yeah, certainly had some assistance from Democratic Services team in drafting the report, and I'm sure we'd all thank them for their support over the last civic year with the committee as well. And I think sometimes until you write it all down and read back, you don't quite realise what you have achieved. I can't see any other indications there, so I'll move on to the recommendations now, which are listed on page 6 of the scrutiny agenda pack. Could I have a proposal in a second just to endorse the report, please?
I'll propose.
Proposed by Councillor Cathy James and seconded by Councillor Robert Wood in the chamber. Thank you. So if members do not indicate to the contrary, then I will take it this report is approved.
I see no indications to the contrary, Chair. Therefore, that report has been approved.
Thank you, Tom. Okay, so we'll now move on to the scrutiny, the Cabinet Board agenda for pre-decision scrutiny. So our first item there is item 9, the KPIs. So they're on pages 53 to 76 on the Cabinet Board papers. I've got a few indications from members from pre-briefing. Before I go to those, do officers wish to add anything to the KPI report?
Chair, just to mention, obviously members will see that this is a new presentation format, so that'll be, you may have seen it in other reports across the authority, but this is the first time it's come to before this board. It's in response to feedback that members have made previously around the performance indicators and how they're presented. So our colleagues in the corporate performance team have been developing this new presentation format. So that's the only thing I wanted to point out. And if there's any feedback, obviously, in terms of that presentation, we can record that today and feed that back to our colleagues for their consideration. Thank you, Chair.
I appreciate that. And you just reminded me as well to remind scrutiny members that we have a training session coming up on the 20th of October, which will sort of just go through this new format in a bit more detail and perhaps help members interpret some of these performance indicators a little better. So all members of the committee should have that in their diary by now, and I think it is important members do attend that session. So I'll go now to indications from pre-briefing. My first one is Councillor Cathy James. Cathy.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, it is actually a comment rather than a question on the presentation. I just want to say how much better I think this is. It's a lot clearer to see what's going on, particularly seeing the longer term trends and the direction of travel. So I think it is definitely an improvement. One additional thing that might also be useful is if there could be a line on the graphs to indicate what the target is. So we can, I know it's in the text underneath, but people do tend to, if there's a picture, they just look at the picture and nothing else, I find. So I think that might be useful to have that. But no, other than that, I'm really impressed with the new format. Thanks.
Thanks, Cathy. I'm sure officers note that feedback. The next indication is, Dave's thumbs up, fantastic, is from Councillor Ros Davis. Ros.
Diolch yn fawr. Page 64, and it's missed collections recorded. I'm wondering if the figures include, it states all calls logged. Does that include online reporting? And does it also include members contacting waste services to report waste collections?
In terms of online, Chair, through you, online, yes. I think one of the things about member calls is, of course, that's why we encourage members to go through the call centre, because we know then it definitely does get logged properly when the calls come through the call centre. If they come in direct to individual officers, there is a potential for it not to be logged onto the system, because it's the customer service system. So if you were to ring a supervisor, for example, and they're busy working on delivering the crews in the day, they might not get that onto the system. So if you want to make sure it's definitely logged, ring the service first number, and it is then definitely logged into the system.
The only problem is, by the time it's logged, the chances are that missed collections will not be collected until another fortnight, when possibly when members do phone that they're still in the area that they go and collect the refuse or the The recycling.
I just said that's one of the reasons on the waste action plan that's been approved, and Cabinet approved the capital funding recently as well, that for the in-cab data system, so that we can actually beam miscollection straight into the cab when the teams are out. So through the tracker system, we'll know exactly where they are, and the in-cab data system, we can beam a miscollection straight to the crew or the nearest crew that's there. So that's all the improvements that are in the pipeline, Councillor.
Diolch yn fawr. Thank you.
Thanks, Ross. Thanks, Mike. My next indication is Councillor Laura Williams. Laura.
Thank you, Chair. Mine is similar, but it's around a different KPI. So I've got two questions regarding KPI 17, so the number of fly tipping reports. So again, similar to Roslyn, are members' reporting figures included in that figure, or is it just from public reporting? But I'm guessing it's going to be a similar answer.
Well, the fly tipping figures are actually on what's called the flare system. It's a slightly different system, so everything that the officers get investigate goes into the flare system. So it's slightly different with that. So yes, whatever reports that the teams get goes into the flare system, so that does capture everything. Because obviously they're running a legal process, so everything is documented.
Okay, fab. And then my other question was, so I can see there's a lower number for this quarter of the fly tipping. Is that because the reports are getting categorised differently? So things are getting categorised as, like, say, sideways instead of fly tipping now?
There are presentation issues, so sometimes people put it out on the wrong week, and the presentation people deal with that, but I don't believe so. No, I think it's if you look historically, you'll see fly tipping has fluctuated. It obviously, when we went through lockdown, fly tipping increased as enforcement decreased, and at one time the whole sort of legal processes for fly tipping was suspended for a while. We couldn't do the police and criminal evidence interviews, and it was all very difficult with the remote working, but that's all now gone, and what you're actually seeing now is the enforcement coming back into play, and the fly tipping dropping back.
Okay, thank you. Fab, thank you.
Thanks both. Wayne, I've noted your hand. I'm going to bring in Andrew Dacey first, and then we'll come to you. Councillor Dacey.
Right, thank you, Chair. My access to the documents are corrupted at the minute, so I can't see. But do we log complaints of sometimes a mess that's left after collections? Is there a complaint or is there a system where we can log on that?
Yeah, the customer services system captures everything. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Okay. Thank you for that.
Okay, Councillor Carpenter.
Thank you, Chair. It's a question to Mike, really. Mike, you mentioned the importance about logging complaints through the call centre so that it can be logged correctly. My personal experience is similar to that of Councillor Ros Davis, in a sense that it does tend to lead to a delay in action being taken. Can we check this morning that when we go through the call centre, then the in-cab system will be contacted by them?
It certainly will be when the in-cab system is in place. They are also reviewing the service first system at the moment to put improvements into that as well, the customer care system. So, it was just raised about what it captures. So of course they're looking at that at the moment to make sure as well that they do capture absolutely everything that you're interested in.
Could I just come back on that, please, Chair? Just to say, that as long as we know that, my tendency has been to speak to an officer directly, because then we get a lot more direct action and faster action. And I'm more concerned about action than I am about login figures personally, because when things happen, they then delay to another fortnight, sometimes another month in some cases. So I just wanted to check that when the in-cab system kicks in, that we get through to the right people. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Carpenter. I think that's a very valid point, and I'm sure there'll have to be some sort of training and advice to members as these sort of systems come into being down the line. I can't see any other.
Perhaps, Chair, if I could just add as well that we've,
of course.
as part of the preparation for the in-CAF system, we've currently resurveyed all the collection rounds, and all that data has been uploaded into the Service First system, and we are now, or we will now be, in a position going forward to actually analyse complaints against the rounds themselves. So that will enable us, if there was any particular problematic issues with individual rounds, you should be able to identify that in the future. So there's going to be a little bit of a time lag on that, because that information has just been uploaded into the system. But in a few months' time, hopefully we can analyse the complaints and everything directly against the individual rounds.
Thank you. That's fantastic. I'm sure members appreciate that. Okay, I can't see any other indications on the KPIs from members. This report is for monitoring, and therefore we note the report. Okay, so I'll now go to back to the scrutiny agenda before we go into private session, just to look at the committee action log and forward work programme. Both these items are for noting, and as we said previously, particularly with the forward work programme, that is still being worked on. I've got a meeting hopefully soon with the director to just work on a few items that we're trying to programme in. So if members, as always, have any items they want to put onto the forward work programme, you don't need to wait for this item on the agenda. You can contact myself, the Vice Chair of Democratic Services. But do members have any questions or queries on this before we move on? Okay, I can't see any. Fantastic. Okay, so we'll move on now to the urgent items on the Cabinet Board papers. So we've got 3 private urgent items today. So all these items we've decided to scrutinise item 10B and item 11. So I move to resolve to exclude the public for those items pursuant to section 100A, parts 4 and 5 of the Local Government Act 1972 and the relevant exempt paragraphs of part 4 of Schedule 12A to the above Act. So could I have a seconder, please, to allow us to consider these items in private?
I'll second, Chair.
Councillor Rob Wood in the chamber, thank you. Members, if you don't indicate to the contrary by raising your hands, I will assume you're in favour of moving into private session.
I see no indications to the contrary, Chair, therefore we can move into private session.
Thank you. I've just waited for confirmation the recording has stopped and